Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Let's just get straight into it. She didn't know I was still in the room. She was on the phone, pacing back and forth in our bedroom, barefoot, twisting her hair like she always does when she's excited. No, he's just safe. Like, I appreciate it, but he's not who I really want. You know what I mean? He's not him. I was in the walk-in closet. Not hiding on purpose. I was putting away laundry like the human doormat I'd become. But then she came in on the phone, and I froze. Didn't breathe. And I listened. Yeah, I'll talk to him tonight. I'll tell him the truth. He deserves that, at least. Pause. No, he won't freak out. He's too soft. He'll cry a little. Maybe beg. But then he'll let me go. He always does. She laughed. And I realized something in that moment, something I hadn't wanted to admit for months. She didn't respect me. Not even a little. She pitied me. And she was done pretending. By the time she left the room, I was still standing there in the dark, holding her folded sweater in my hand like an idiot. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stood there, staring at a row of clothes, wondering which one she'd take with her. Later that night, after dinner, she sat across from me like she was at a job interview. She didn't touch her food. She didn't look at me. Then, with the same tone you'd use to cancel a magazine subscription, she said it. "You're not who I want." She smiled. Smiled. Like she was giving me a gift. I stood up. Walked to the kitchen. Opened the drawer where I kept the ring box from our engagement, still stored with old receipts and broken pens. I came back. Dropped it on the table between us. Didn't say a word. I pointed to the door. She blinked. Just once. Then stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out like it was the end of a boring movie. I stood there in the living room for a long time after. No TV. No lights. Just the sound of the fridge humming and my heart trying to piece itself back together. Then, 10 minutes later. A knock. Soft. Hesitant. I opened the door. And there she was. Her sister. No umbrella. No jacket. Just standing there in the rain like something out of a dream I forgot how to have. She looked at me, her eyes full of something I couldn't name, and said, "Can I come in?" That's when everything started unraveling. Not just the marriage. My entire reality. Ramona stepped in slowly, like she wasn't sure if she should really be there. Her eyes scanned the room, the quiet, the mess, the untouched dinner plates, the half-folded laundry on the armrest like a still life of a broken evening. She took a few steps inside, then turned toward me, twisting the strap of her bag between her fingers. She looked nervous. Not awkward. Nervous. Like someone who knows something awful and hasn't figured out how to say it yet. I didn't offer her a seat. I didn't ask what she wanted. I just stood there, waiting, barely breathing, because something in her expression told me this wasn't going to be a sisterly pep talk. There was no, "I'm sorry she hurt you," in her eyes. There was something more complicated. More loaded. "Where is she?" Ramona asked softly, breaking the silence. "Gone," I said. "Probably with whoever she actually wants." She winced. Not surprised. Not curious. Just, like she already knew. And then she whispered something I'll never forget. "She's not with him anymore. Not after what happened." I blinked. "What do you mean?" Ramona sat down without asking. Her hands were trembling a little. She glanced at the ring box still sitting on the table like a ghost that refused to leave. Then she looked up at me and said, "Lowell, I wasn't going to say anything. I thought it wasn't my place. But I can't let you go on thinking she was just bored of you. It's worse than that. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small brown envelope, wrinkled, water-spotted. She held it out to me. I was at Myra's apartment last week. She left this on the table and forgot about it. I opened it thinking it was mine. I was wrong. I hesitated, then took it. Inside were photos. Grainy, printed ones. Not screenshots. Not digital. Photos. At first I didn't understand what I was looking at. But then it clicked. Myra. In a parking lot. Hugging someone. Not unusual, until I saw the second one. Same guy. Different pose. Myra. Kissing him. And not just kissing. Holding him like he was home. The guy wasn't a stranger. He was my coworker. Eli. My stomach flipped. My vision narrowed. I felt like I was falling inside my own body. Ramona was watching me the whole time, her face pale. I tried to tell her to stop, she said. She told me it was harmless. She said it was only physical and that you'd never find out. And then last week, things escalated. What do you mean? I asked, my voice brittle. Ramona hesitated again. There was a fight. Myra and Eli. I think he told her he didn't want to see her anymore. Something happened between them. Something ugly. I collapsed onto the chair across from her, the envelope still open in my lap. My hands felt disconnected from my brain. My tongue was dry. My thoughts, louder than anything else in the room. So she didn't leave because she fell in love, I mumbled. She left because her affair ended and she wanted to reset. Ramona nodded slowly. And because she thought you'd take her back. Eventually. You always do, right? That stung. Because it was true. I didn't know what to say. For a moment we just sat there in silence, two people staring at a pile of shattered illusions. The worst part? I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I just felt small. Like someone had been peeling off my self-worth in layers for years and I was only now noticing I had nothing left. Ramona looked at me, her voice barely a whisper now. I came here tonight because you deserve better. Because I couldn't stand the way she twisted things. You think she's cruel now? You didn't hear the things she said about you when you weren't around. And then she stood up. Walked to the door. Stopped. Looked back at me. And said something I never expected. Lowell, if you want the whole truth, meet me tomorrow. I'll show you everything. Then she left. And I was alone again, holding the truth in my hands. But for the first time. I didn't want to run from it. I wanted to know just how deep the betrayal really went. I barely slept that night. I kept flipping those photos over in my hands, hoping they would somehow mean less the longer I stared. But they didn't. If anything, the longer I looked, the clearer it became that I had been living in a version of my marriage that only existed in my head. I kept hearing her words in my head, "You're not who I want." I used to think she meant it as a moment of clarity. Now I realized it was the final line of a script she had been rehearsing for months. Maybe years. And then there was Ramona. I didn't know what to make of her showing up like that. Was it guilt? Loyalty? Jealousy? I didn't even know if I wanted the whole truth. But I was already too deep in it to turn back. The next morning, I texted her. "Where?" She replied in less than a minute. "My place. Noon. Don't bring anything. Just come alone." 12 o'clock hit like a hammer. I drove over without eating, still wearing the same jeans from the night before. My head was pounding. I don't even remember driving there. My hands were on the wheel, but my thoughts were scattered across every lie Myra had ever told me. Ramona opened the door before I even knocked. Like she'd been watching from the window. She didn't smile. Didn't speak right away. Just stepped aside and let me in. Her place smelled like citrus and lavender, clean and sharp. I'd only been there once before, years ago. Mira said she and her sister weren't close. Another lie, apparently. Sit, Ramona said. She walked over to a small table and picked up her laptop. No dramatic build-up. No hesitation. Just opened it and pulled up a folder called Mira, do not open. She clicked it. Inside were dozens of screenshots. Messages. Voice notes. Videos. And my wife in every single one of them. Not just with Eli. With other men. Multiple. Some of the messages dated back over a year. Some longer. She had a second life. A whole second life. While I was home cooking, folding laundry, checking her favorite wine off the grocery list, she was sending messages like, "He's sweet but so safe. I feel like I'm married to a wall." Or worse. "I keep waiting for him to grow a spine, but he just nods and smiles." I think that's the saddest part. I stared at the screen, my mouth dry. My ears were ringing. She never planned to stay, Ramona said. She planned to drain you slowly and leave once she found something better. But Eli dumped her, I mumbled. Ramona nodded. He caught feelings. She didn't. She told him he was disposable. He retaliated by telling everyone at your workplace. She quit the same day you thought she had a migraine. I felt sick. Like truly, physically ill. And then Ramona said something that broke the last thread I had left. She tried to access your savings account 2 weeks ago. What? She bragged about it to one of the guys she was messaging. I only found out because she reused a photo of your checkbook in the chat. Look. She pulled it up. There it was. My handwriting. My signature. My wife, sending it to some guy named Keith, captioned. Soon, I'll have enough to start over. Just need him to keep smiling a bit longer. I stared at the screen. Then I stood up and walked to the window because I genuinely didn't trust myself not to scream. She wasn't just cheating. She was robbing me. Emotionally. Financially. Quietly. I turned back to Ramona. Why are you showing me this? She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said. Because I'm not like her. And because I used to think you were too soft. But you've taken every hit, Lowell, and you're still standing. That deserves something. She stepped closer. And I swear to you, what she said next cracked something wide open inside me. Let's make sure she never gets away with it. Ramona didn't flinch when she said it. She just stood there, eyes locked on mine, like this whole thing had been simmering beneath her skin for months. She wasn't angry. She wasn't emotional. She was sharp. Controlled. Like someone who had been forced to play nice for too long and was finally done waiting for karma to do its job. She's not just a cheater, Ramona said. She's a manipulator. And people like Mira don't stop unless someone makes them. I just stood there, the air thick in my throat. So what, you want revenge? She shook her head. No. I want clarity. For you. For everyone she's fooled. I want people to know who she really is. Then she slid a small red envelope across the table. What's this? Ramona smiled for the first time that day. Not a cruel smile. Not smug. Just resolute. It's an invitation. I'm hosting a family dinner next weekend. Casual. Everyone Mira knows and pretends to care about will be there. She's already RSVP'd. My stomach twisted. You want me to go? I want you to host it. At your place. Just like old times. I hesitated. She'll never come if she knows I'm involved. She won't. Not until she gets there. She thinks it's mine. I laughed bitterly. This is insane. Ramona leaned in. What's insane is letting her keep walking away clean. What's insane is you sitting alone in your living room every night wondering if you could have done something differently when she was tearing you down behind your back. Lowell, this isn't just about closure. It's about truth. I didn't say yes. Not out loud. But something inside me shifted. That night, I walked through the house like I was seeing it for the first time after a natural disaster. The couch where she used to fall asleep during movie nights. The wine stains on the rug she never cleaned. The spare key still hidden behind the bookshelf. Everything felt poisoned. Haunted. And yet, I began cleaning. I scrubbed the stove. Washed the curtains. Moved the furniture. I wasn't preparing for a dinner party. I was preparing for a reveal. The week passed slowly. Every day I checked the guest list Ramona shared with me. Myra's friends. Her two-faced co-workers. Even her parents, who never liked me but always praised her like she was made of glass. I almost bailed 3 times. I rehearsed my speech every night in my head, and every time I did, it ended differently. Sometimes I yelled. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I just dropped the photos on the table and walked away. Saturday came. I wore a clean button-down. I hadn't touched alcohol in days. I wanted to be sharp. Present. Ramona arrived early. She brought food and helped set the table like nothing strange was about to happen. But under her calm demeanor, I could see it, she was nervous too. At 6:41 p.m., Mira walked through the front door. I'll never forget the moment our eyes met. She was wearing a white blouse, a fake smile, and a pair of heels I had bought for our anniversary 3 years ago. She hadn't seen me yet, she thought it was Ramona's dinner. Then I stepped out from the kitchen, holding a tray of glasses. Her smile faltered. She stopped mid-step. Ramona walked past her, kissed her on the cheek, and said cheerfully, "Glad you could make it. Everyone's waiting." Mira followed her like a sleepwalker. The dining room was full. Laughter. Wine. Conversation. But when she entered, it all quieted. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood at the head of the table. Then, calmly, I placed a thick folder onto the table in front of her plate. "I found the parts of you you didn't mean to leave behind," I said. Her face drained of color. Ramona stood behind her, silent. Mira looked down, saw the envelope, the label on the front in my handwriting. "For everyone who still believes you." Her hand hovered over it. The room was still. And then she laughed. Loud. Hollow. "What is this? Another one of your emotional breakdowns, Lowell?" That's when I knew, she was going to try to lie her way through this, too. But I had come prepared. I pressed a button on the speaker beside me. And her voice, her own voice, played for the entire room. "He's like wallpaper. He just blends into the background. But he pays the bills, so whatever." Laughter. I could cheat in front of him and he'd probably apologize. Her friend stared. Her father's fork dropped onto the plate with a loud clang. Her mother's face twisted into confusion. Her co-workers looked at each other like they'd just been tricked into attending a crime scene. Mira sat frozen. That moment lasted longer than any I've ever lived through. And it wasn't over yet. The audio clip ended. Dead silence. All you could hear was the slow clinking of silverware being set down, like no one wanted to be the first to react, the first to acknowledge what we'd all just heard. Myra's voice still echoed in the room, ghost-like and grotesque. She sat there motionless for a second, her hands clenched under the table, her eyes darting from one face to another as the reality of the moment began to settle in. Then, she tried to smile. Tried to brush it off like she always did. Like she was still in control. Okay, she said, her voice trembling as she reached for her wine glass. So we're doing this. I didn't say anything. I just watched. She cleared her throat and straightened up like she was about to deliver a TED talk on betrayal and come out applauded. Look, I know how this sounds. But that recording was taken out of context. Lowell's been recording me without my knowledge, think about that for a second. What kind of man does that to his wife? She scanned the table again, trying to find an ally. Her father looked down at his hands. Her mother stared at the folder like it might bite. Her friends avoided eye contact like they were suddenly just plus ones at a funeral. Ramona broke the silence. I recorded that. At your apartment. You were talking to me. That was the first crack. Myra's eyes widened. You what? Ramona didn't blink. I warned you. You called me weak, remember? Said I lived in your shadow. Well, guess what? Your shadow's finally burned off. Mira slammed her glass down. So what now? You both think this is justice? That humiliating me in front of my family is noble? I finally spoke. Calm. Quiet. No, Mira. I don't think this is justice. But it is the truth. And truth doesn't care how it makes you feel. She stood up so suddenly her chair screeched across the hardwood. This is a setup, she hissed. You wanted revenge. Both of you. You can't handle the fact that I wanted more than a spineless husband and a jealous sister. Her father finally spoke, his voice low and shaking. Mira, sit down. She turned to him, stunned. You've lied. Manipulated. And now you want us to feel sorry for you. I never lied to you, she shot back. You lied to everyone, he said. Her mother was already crying. Mira looked around again and saw it, the collapse. The scaffolding of her carefully constructed life falling apart one beam at a time. She didn't yell. She didn't argue. She laughed. A bitter, humorless sound that didn't match the panic in her eyes. Then she looked at me, straight through me, and said, you were never enough. That's why this hurts. Because you believed you were. That hit harder than I expected. Even after everything she'd done, she still needed to twist the knife on the way out. Ramona took a step forward, voice cold. Get out. Mira glared at her, then back at me. Enjoy the sympathy. But don't forget, you're the one who let me do it for this long. She turned and walked out without another word. No one followed. The door slammed like a final sentence. I sat back down, hands shaking under the table. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt empty. Like I'd spent the last year fighting to keep a fire going, not realizing the house had already burned down. The rest of the guests began leaving quietly. Ramona stayed. Cleaned up. Didn't say much. When everyone was gone, I collapsed onto the couch. Ramona sat beside me, silent. She meant it, didn't she? I whispered. All of it. Ramona didn't try to sugarcoat it. Yes. We sat like that for a long time. Two people connected by the same wreckage. Then she said something I didn't expect. You know, there's still more you don't know. About her. About Eli. About what she tried to do with your name. I turned to her, confused. What do you mean? Ramona looked down. There was a document. She left it on her laptop one day. I didn't open it at first, but then I saw your name listed in the file name with the word release. I think she was planning something. Something legal. I sat up, alarmed. Like what? She was getting ready to claim assets. Say you were abusive. Emotionally. That she was trapped. My blood ran cold. She was laying a foundation to take everything. I stared at the floor, my head spinning. She hadn't just left me. She had planned to erase me. I couldn't breathe. Ramona's words rang in my ears like a siren underwater. A document. My name. The word release. The whole night blurred. The audio, the confrontation, Myra's meltdown, it all suddenly felt like a preview. Like the actual movie was just beginning, and I had been too stupid to read the plot twist coming. Ramona went quiet after she told me, like she wasn't sure if she should go further. But she saw the way I looked at her, like a man watching his own future slipping through a crack in the floorboards, and she finally stood up and said, "Come on." She drove us to her apartment. I don't even remember grabbing my coat. My body moved on autopilot. My mind was full of noise. Not thoughts, just that heavy, unbearable pressure that comes when the foundation under your life begins to rot. Once we arrived, Ramona headed straight for her laptop. She didn't waste time. She opened a folder labeled Backup, then another inside that read Mira_stuff, and there it was. Lowell_release form_draft. Docs. I sat down like I'd been punched. She opened it. At first glance, it looked like a standard separation agreement, plain, boring legal jargon. But then I started reading the specifics. Paragraph by paragraph. There were false claims listed under marital conduct. Words like emotional volatility, pattern of erratic behavior, verbal hostility. And even worse. She had inserted fabricated email screenshots into the appendix. Things I had never written. Conversations that never happened. Text threads that had been edited to make me look like some cold, manipulative monster. She wasn't just preparing to leave. She was building a narrative, one where I was the villain and she was the brave survivor. She had this backed up on the cloud, Ramona said, her voice cold. I only saw it because she used my laptop to download photos a few weeks ago and forgot to log out. I made a copy before she could delete it. I stared at the screen. At my name. At the lies. This wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditated character assassination. She was going to walk out of our marriage, spin some tragic sob story to her friends and family, then bleed me out in court using fake evidence I never saw coming. And if Ramona hadn't found it, she would have pulled it off. She even drafted statements for 2 of her friends, Ramona continued. Saying they witnessed you shouting at her. That you were controlling. I don't even raise my voice, I muttered. I know, she said. My hands were shaking. I could feel my pulse in my teeth. All those nights I blamed myself. All those moments I wondered if I wasn't exciting enough, strong enough, man enough, and the whole time she was sharpening a knife behind my back. I stood up, pacing. My heart was racing, but not from fear anymore. From realization. She wanted everything, I said. Not just freedom. She wanted me buried. Ramona nodded. And if she thinks she failed tonight, she'll try again. Just in a different way. I sank back into the chair, exhausted. What do I even do now? She hesitated. Then said something that chilled me more than the file ever could. You fight smart. Not loud. You expose her the right way, legally. I've already contacted someone. A friend of mine. She works in digital forensics. She can authenticate these files. You don't have to go down. Not if we move now. I looked at her like she was speaking a language I'd never heard. Because Ramona, she had gone from a quiet side character in Myra's drama to the one person standing between me and total destruction. But that wasn't all. There was something in her eyes. A kind of weight. Like she still hadn't told me everything. What else? I asked. Ramona looked away. There's one more thing. She walked to a small drawer and pulled out a tiny voice recorder. One of those cheap plastic things from the early 2000s. She placed it on the table between us. She came over last month, Ramona said. Drunk. Angry. She thought I was still loyal to her. She said too much. I recorded it because. I don't know. Something in me didn't trust her anymore. She pressed play. Myra's voice, slurred but unmistakable, filled the room. He's pathetic. I could take everything and he'd still thank me. Maybe I'll do it, just to see his face. I'll walk away with his money and his dignity, and he'll still be texting me, "Can we talk?" a week later. Laughter. Men like Lowell deserve to be stepped on. Because they don't know how to fight back. I didn't even feel sad anymore. I felt awake. She underestimated me. And for the first time in years, I didn't. I didn't go home that night. Ramona offered me the couch, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't argue. I didn't even try to pretend like I was fine. I just sank into the cushions, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling, trying to process the weight of everything I had learned in the last 48 hours. There wasn't a single memory left untouched. Every sweet gesture from Mira now felt weaponized. Every smile, a setup. Every apology, a reset button to keep me compliant. I wasn't a husband to her. I was an asset. A pawn. A soft-voiced man she could mold and rewrite and erase when it suited her. The next morning, Ramona had already printed copies of the documents and recordings. She handed them to me in a manila folder like it was my new identity. "You need to talk to someone who knows how to handle high-level deception," she said. "I've already made the call. Her name's Greta Simmons. She handles cases like yours." I didn't know what cases like mine meant. I thought I was just another heartbroken guy trying to crawl out of the crater of a bad marriage. Turns out, I was more like a bank account wrapped in skin and paper-thin boundaries. But I nodded. I was done hesitating. The meeting with Greta happened that afternoon. She was brisk, sharp, and terrifying in the best way. She flipped through the file without flinching, tapping pages with her pen, asking questions I wasn't ready for but answered anyway. By the time we hit the 30-minute mark, she leaned back in her chair and said, "This isn't just a divorce. It's a full-scale fraud attempt. You're lucky the sister was paying attention." She used the word sister like it was some distant concept. I glanced at Ramona, who just looked down and said, "Yeah, lucky." That night, I finally went home. The house felt hollow and artificial, like someone had scrubbed it clean of human warmth. Even the air felt cold. Mira had taken some clothes, a few photos, and her favorite espresso machine. Everything else she'd left behind was a performance: books she didn't read, trinkets she never touched, a toothbrush cap still in place like she might return. But I knew she wouldn't. And then, 3 days later, the letter came. It was hand-delivered. No postage. Just a thick, white envelope tucked between the door and the frame. My name scrawled across it in Myra's loopy handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded in half. No greeting. No apology. Just a statement. "You've made this ugly. I wanted peace. Now I'll show you what war looks like." I read it 5 times. Each time, it hit harder. She wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She was escalating. I called Ramona immediately, told her about the note. She showed up 20 minutes later and found me pacing the kitchen with the envelope still in my hand. Her eyes scanned the message and narrowed. "This isn't just petty," she said. "It's a warning. She's about to go nuclear." And she did. That evening, my phone lit up with messages from old college friends, co-workers, even my cousin from Idaho, people I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them asking the same thing: "What's going on? Why did she post that?" "Post what?" I jumped onto social media. And there it was. A long, heart-wrenching post from Mira, public for the world to see, painting herself as a survivor of a toxic, manipulative marriage, full of vague statements, falsified screenshots, and even a photo of her sitting on our porch with a bruise she claimed wasn't an accident. The comments section was an explosion of sympathy. "You're so strong for leaving. He never deserved you. I always had a bad feeling about him." The worst part? Some of the people commenting were my friends. She got ahead of the truth. She told the world her version first. Ramona's voice cracked when she spoke. "You need to post something. Not to fight her. Just to defend yourself." But I didn't. I didn't want to look like I was dragging her through the mud. I didn't want to play her game. Until I saw the message she sent directly to my boss. A formal complaint. Accusing me of harassment. Saying I had unstable behavior, that I'd threatened her, and that I was capable of unpredictable acts. That's when I snapped. She wasn't just trying to destroy my image. She was trying to end me. By the next morning, everything was in motion. Greta, the attorney Ramona had introduced me to, had already filed for an emergency injunction. We had the forged screenshots, the voice recordings, the fake witness statements Mira had drafted, and now, we had a motive, her attempt to destroy my reputation professionally and personally. I submitted a statement to HR at my workplace before she could poison the air further. Greta's forensics contact authenticated the digital files and included metadata proving Mira had edited conversations and created fake email threads. It was all admissible. But none of that prepared me for what happened next. Greta told me, "We're not just filing for divorce. We're building a countersuit." She initiated character defamation and fraud. That changes everything. I had spent weeks trying to survive, hoping the storm would pass. Suddenly, I was standing in it, with lightning in my own hands. We requested a private mediation session before any courtroom escalation. Mira agreed, probably assuming she'd manipulate her way through it like always. She walked into the mediation room wearing a crisp beige blazer, a soft smile on her lips like she was the injured party here. She didn't even look at me. But this time, I didn't look away. Greta handed over the evidence. One by one, the documents were laid on the table. The voice recordings. The screenshots Mira swore were real. The audio of her laughing about ruining me. Her lawyer's smile evaporated with every page turned. Myra's hands began to tremble. "This isn't," she started. Greta shut it down. "We have timestamps. Cloud logs. Witness statements. Metadata. You lied. Extensively. If you push this further, we go public. If you settle now, you walk away quietly, with nothing." The room was dead silent. Mira tried to argue, but her voice was cracking. I think, for the first time in her life, she realized the mirror wasn't going to flatter her anymore. The image she built, charming, untouchable, adored, was crumbling. And there was no one left to help her hold it together. We settled that same day. She forfeited all financial claims. Signed an NDA. Walked out of the building with sunglasses on, not a word spoken. Her story ended not in fire, but in silence. Her social media meltdown vanished. Her friends faded away. Even Eli had apparently cut all contact. And me? I didn't just survive. I healed. I got to keep my name. My job. My dignity. And strangely, something else I never saw coming, Ramona. We didn't rush anything. She gave me space. But over time, something between us shifted. Maybe it was born from shared damage. Maybe it was built on truth. But it was real. And safe. And not built on lies. Months later, we took a walk by the lake near her apartment. Leaves were falling. I turned to her and asked, "Why did you help me?" She smiled. "Because you were the only one who ever believed Mira wasn't perfect." I laughed. Took me long enough to stop pretending she was. And for the first time in years, I felt light again. Thank you for watching Reddit Confessions. If you made it to the end, tell us in the comments, have you ever seen someone try to rewrite the truth, and fail? Or maybe you've lived through your own shocking betrayal and came out stronger. Share your stories below, we read every single one. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a confession. Until next time.